Hello, this is Peter Davison, and you're listening to Discussing Who.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Discussing Who. I am Kyle Jones, and on this episode, we will be discussing, reviewing, and talking all about the Fifth Doctor's last story, The Caves of Androzani. And who will...
spoil it. Yeah.
Hey, are you wanting me to go ahead and say the spoiler warning? Is that what you're doing, Lee Shackleford?
Just saying, don't call it the Fifth Doctor's last adventure before you've said spoiler.
Oh, well, that's true. So I guess just for the heck of it, I might want to say, if you have not seen Caves of Androzani, put us on pause, go out, watch the episode, because even before we do introductions, from this moment forward, spoilers.
Spoilers. Affirmative. Spoilers. Spoilers. Affirmative. Spoilers.
Alrighty, the spoiler warning has gone out, and that means it's time for me to say, welcome back, Lee Shackleford.
Hi, guys. Great to be back with you again. It's a depressing time in the world right now, and I have been so looking forward to talking with the two of you. I knew it was going to be the bright spot of this day, at least. So,
I mean, I know it's, the last appearance of the Fifth Doctor, but it's still the same character, dude. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
But seriously, all jokes aside, me being me, I was very glad to have you back, because I have also been needing this conversation. And this conversation, the trinity of us would not be complete without Clarence Brown. Clarence, my friend, how are you?
I'm good, man. But Kyle is just one of the many, many, many regenerations. You should lose count on that.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right, man.
Yeah. With that crazy lady murdering the Doctor over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, because I love horrible, horrible puns, I just want to say the Ruth is out there.
The Ruth is out there. That's a t-shirt, dude. Jump on it.
Yeah. There you go.
Dude.
So I don't really have anything but one thing in the news. And the one thing that is in the news, actually I have two. One thing that I have in the news is from Meepy, and giving us a big shout out, wanting to say how much that shout out that we gave really, really meant a lot. And so again, Meepy, thank you so much for listening.
Yay.
Awesome.
So my second piece of news, gentlemen, and Lee Shackleford, I'm going to throw this one at you because you kind of surprised us last week with a mini script for something called an episode of Listen, Rinse, Repeat. So you want to tell everybody about that?
It's been a great week for short little scripts, and I that will lead me to talking about something else. It's even more Doctor Who related, but yeah, the silly podcast Listen, Rinse, Repeat. You can find out more about at listenrinserepeatpodcast.com. How's that for a URL? Yeah, it's the whole idea is it's something you listen to while you're washing your hands for the doctor recommended 20 seconds. So they're about 20 seconds long. So I wrote a script for the three of us, and that one has gone up today, gone up to the servers. So look for an episode called Survival, starring the three of us, in which you'll learn, among other things, that Clarence says he can't do a British accent, but he can.
Somehow, some way, huh?
It gets pretty good.
Yes, it was.
So anyway, so the other thing about short scripts, though, is that one of the things that has been sustaining me this week, I have watched it over and over and over again, is this little thing that Jodie Whittaker did in costume and apparently in her closet. And she just jumped in there with a cell phone. And I don't know who wrote it. I have wondered if she did. But in any case, it's been cleared and franchised by the BBC. But it is just her as the Doctor looking right at us and saying, basically, hang in there. And maybe we can even drop the audio of it in here right now. But in any case, I encourage everybody to track it down. It is, I think it is a wonderful, wonderful little piece of really good advice, including listen to doctors.
So since you said that, Mr. Shackleford, and due to the power of Time Lord technology and all of that audio, why don't we listen to that right now?
Oh, hi. This is an emergency transmission. If you're seeing this, the TARDIS must have detected an upsurge in psychological signals from somewhere in space and time. Basically, I think somebody somewhere might be a little bit worried. I'm actually just self-isolating, or as I like to call it, hiding from an army of Sontarans. But keep that to yourself. Now, here's what I do in any worrying situation. 1, remember, you will get through this, and things will be all right, even if they look uncertain. Even if you're worried, darkness never prevails. 2, tell jokes, even bad ones, especially bad ones. I am brilliant at bad ones. 3, be kind, even kinder than you were yesterday. And I know you were super kind yesterday. Look out for each other. You won't be the only one worried. Talking will help. Sharing will help. Look out for your friends, your neighbours, people you hardly know, and family. Because in the end, we're all family. 4, listen to science and listen to doctors, right? They've got your back. 5, stay strong, stay positive. You've got this. And I will see you very soon.
Here it is.
You know, I want to believe that she ad-libbed that. Even if somebody else wrote it, I want to believe that.
If she's got all she needs is a little outline. Yeah, no, I was just speaking earlier about our friend Nicole. Nicole said, I don't want to sound catty, but that's the best writing anybody's done for Jodie this year. And I said, no, you know what? I agree with you. And if it turns out that she wrote that, then I want to start campaigning for her as showrunner.
Hello.
Well,
because she really understands this character.
Yeah. And I think you could feel the passion behind what she was saying. She was serious about what she was saying. And I think that's what I felt most about it.
Well, several people have said that they cried when they watched that the first time, and I think that's it, Clarence. I think they're really we really wanted somebody that we respect to look us in the eye and say all these things with that kind of conviction behind it. Yeah. So thank you, Jodie, and whoever else is responsible for this. But it really has been a gift, I think, a gift to the Whovian world and beyond.
Yeah.
So speaking of a gift to the Whovian world and beyond, I want to give a big happy birthday, happy belated birthday by the time this goes out. And since you mentioned this person before, it is to Nicole.
Hey, Nicole Mazza of the Terminus Doctor Who podcast. Correct. Yes. Yes.
So happy birthday, happy belated, and many, 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 many more regenerations.
Yes.
So do either of you have any other items for the news before we move on?
No. Let's get into let's change the subject from all the things that are bringing us down, and let's get into this story where our heroes are dying and we're looking for a cure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Let's change the subject too.
All right. So since we're changing the subject, I would have probably have said at this time, if you had not have already heard it earlier, I would have probably at this moment said that if you have not seen this episode, I would have told you to go out and watch this episode and probably put us on pause and then most likely come back, because probably from this moment forward, I would have said spoilers.
Spoilers. Affirmative. Spoilers. Spoilers. Affirmative. Spoilers.
Yeah, but you're not going to say that. So.
Yes, I am.
You just did.
Yes, I did. And I'm going to leave that in there just for the heck of it, because I did spoiler warning twice. So that means that the Caves of Androzani was the 6th story of season 21 of Doctor Who, and it aired between the 8th and the 16th of March, 1984. It is the last regular appearance of Peter Davison as the 5th Doctor, and it introduces Colin Baker as the 6th. So some review, and Clarence Brown, I'll start with you. What did you think of this story?
I think, like we always say with these stories that are so many episodes, it can drag on. Though I have to say, I really didn't feel that much with this one. The first episode was kind of the one I would throw away, and all the rest of them I felt were like pretty intense, pretty good. I enjoyed all of the performances. I thought the story was much more intricate than on the face of it than it seems. So I really appreciate the story having a little depth to it, and they kind of in the way they wrote out the plot and the characters, I felt like it was a good pace to digest all of that stuff. So I very much enjoyed this episode. I very much did. So I can't hear you guys' thoughts on it.
All right, Lee.
Yay. I'm so glad you enjoyed this, because I've seen it about 11 million times, and I think I feel differently about it every time. But because this is written by Robert Holmes, who is arguably the I don't know, he's not the great Doctor Who writer, but he's certainly the one who has written so much from the classic era that we remember and talk about, including Brain of Morbius and Talons of Wing Chiang. But what struck me this time was that that first episode, I find it kind of puzzling because I don't know who all these characters are. And we're sort of dropped into the story very quickly, and we're left to sort of try to connect the dots. And I could find that for a lot of people, that would just be off-putting. They would just say, I don't really feel the need to be invested in this. So, switch it off. But once you do find out who all these people are and what's going on with them, then it all gets very interesting. I do know that the filming was broken up by a strike. And so they lost some scenes that were scripted. Some things never got finished. And so they had to kind of patch things together. So that may contribute to part of what's puzzling about that first episode. But boy, you're right. There's a lot going on in these 4 episodes. And once you figure out who's who, it barrels forward. Yeah. So what's your quick take on it, Kyle?
So I'm going to agree, as usual, and on par with what we've done in the past. I'm going to agree with both of you and take bits of what both of you said. I agree that part 1 was the only one where I felt this is going to kind of drag on a little bit, because it just seemed to have a slow start to it. But what really stood out to me, and I think it is circumstantial, obviously, because we did not in any way intend, this is the week that we're going to review Caves of Androzani. We decided after recording our last episode of what we were going to review next. So this wasn't planned. But what really stood out to me at the beginning of this story was they had this something that there was no cure for. And it was this fight for a cure. And with everything that was going on right now in reality, it was like, wow, okay. But I really enjoyed this episode, bottom line. I had fun and enjoyed it. So I want to ask you guys, I want to kind of keep going a little bit about the plant and the item that they came in contact with, and they get this mysterious illness. And Lee, I think I need to point this a little bit more to you because you're so invested in the classic era. Do you recall many instances where the doctor and or the companion has been afflicted by something that is just not something done to them, but just the nature of where they're visiting?
Oh, yeah. It seems like it happened to Sarah Jane about every 3rd episode.
Really?
Well, she did get Eldrad. Almost got turned to stone as a result.
Yes.
And I'm trying to think of are there others beside that? But yeah, a lot of that is sort of the quest to try to get a cure for Sarah. So that's the one that jumps to my mind. I'm sure there are other examples, but nothing leaps to mind right now. But one of the things I love about this, and it's just a language thing, but bless Robert Holmes for this, but I just love the sound of spectroxtoxemia. It's just got those sounds in it that make it sound like something terrible. You really, you don't want spectroxtoxemia. Yeah, it's intense, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think if I went to the doctor's office and he said, "You've got spectroxtoxemia," I go, "Ooh,
yeah."
How long do I have?" Yeah. So
Clarence,
cheers for that.
What did you think of the fact that immediately when they get there, it's like they are sickened by something? Because they even go so far, and I thought the description was good, that saying it feels like it's stinging.
Yeah. So they first get there, and it really, what threw me off is immediately Perry says, "Oh, place is beautiful." I'm like, "What? This place is beautiful." It looks like a desolate.
We're in another rock quarry, as we so often were in the classic era. So she should have said, "This looks beautiful." It says here in the script.
But yeah, I do like the race against time that that them contracting this disease or fungus or whatever you want to call it presented, because I thought it made everything, it gave everything a bit of urgency, and I really loved that. I thought it made everything else in the episode exciting, just a little bit more exciting.
Agreed.
Yeah. The clock is ticking from that point on, and the script keeps reminding us, they're not getting any better. So.
Yeah, the way they laid out the different stages, you get a rash and, your legs go and all this other stuff.
Right.
I thought that was a great way of laying out the different stages of how this disease is progressing.
So what I found really interesting in that aspect was, back, I want to mention something about the name. Whenever you said say that again, how do you had so much fun saying it, Lee?
Spectroxtoxemia.
Thank you. So what stood out when you were saying that a minute ago was Stan Lee always said that if you had words like fing, bang, boom, and mamamoo, those big names, that's something, it sticks in the back of your head.
Yeah.
So speaking of sticking in the back of your head, I found it interesting how you had the character of Trow Morgus, or let's just call him Morgus for lack of, because that was his name, when he would turn to the screen and break the fourth wall.
Was he talking to us? I didn't know.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
What?
It is unfortunately one of the things about this episode that stands out is Morgus talking to the camera. And there are a couple of episodes where the Doctor does it, and that's different. It's his show, damn it.
Yeah.
But so the story is, what I've read is that this was the floor director and John Normington, who's playing Morgus, misunderstanding something that was in the script.
Huh.
And that was not how that was supposed to be done. But once they'd done it, everyone sort of looked at the cut and said, "I like it," which on a show like this usually means we don't have time to do it over. So you say, "I like it," because, you don't really have a lot of choice.
So my question is, did y'all like it? Did you guys like it?
No, I hate that. It just makes me nuts every time I see it.
Yeah. I just found myself trying to look and see, was it someone sitting behind him? Because I really couldn't tell. I'm like, is he talking to us? It feels like it, but, wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, in an episode like this, it would be perfectly credible that then finally we're going to pull out that shot a little bit of his office and we're going to see there's one of the androids standing behind him, or something like that, But no, it's a mistake, and it's just.
Oh, but see, I'm going to break ranks and say I totally loved it. I did. I saw him as like this egomaniac, and he was so into himself and so into being over this conglomerate. I really saw him as like, I'm just going to talk to myself and turn and give myself a commentary from. I just thought it worked for the character.
Well, and if it was a different kind of character, it would be worse than it is. So I think you're right in that way, and I've heard it described as the Shakespearean aside, and that supports your point too, that the great villains of Shakespeare, especially Richard III, he's always talking to the audience, and he'll say, "Okay, watch how I'm going to mess with these people," and then he'll do it, and then he'll come back to the audience and go, "Was that great? Did you see what I got away with there?" So that's what Morgus is doing.
Interesting.
It's I don't know.
So I want to ask. Let's switch to the other bad guy, quote unquote, Sharez Jek.
Another wonderful mouthful. Isn't that great? Sharez Jek. He's not going to be the good guy.
So my question is, was he bad or good? What would y'all say?
Well, I have a friend to whom I loaned my DVD of Caves of Androzani, and in the process this week of asking him if he would please give it back to me, he was saying, "Oh, which one is that? Oh, yeah, it's the one that's Dune meets Phantom of the Opera." And I said, oh, that's good. Yeah. The planet where there's something in the ground that everybody has got to have if they're going to keep on living. Okay, you're right. It's Dune. And it's Phantom of the Opera. It really is. Yeah, Shiraz is a horrible person, and he kills, and he thinks of nobody but himself. But he's also clearly broken. That when his face was destroyed, it's obvious his mind went too, and he just. So can we hold him accountable for that? I mean, the real telling point is when he kind of gets up in Perry's face, as he does, and he says, "You think I'm mad, don't you?" And she says, "No." And he says, "Well, I am mad." Well, okay, I won't argue with you.
I think they did a wonderful job of subverting expectations, because initially you think, oh, this masked phantom guy is definitely going to be the villain of this arc. But, they throw another layer on that, and you can think of, if you want to talk about corporate greed or whatever thing you want to throw on top of this, it is definitely Morgus as well as a bad guy. So is this guy that's been wronged and, really put in a bad place? Is he really a bad guy because of what he's doing? Yes, because he's doing bad stuff. But still, we can kind of understand what brought him here. I like the fact that they added that complexity to his character, because sans that, he just feels pretty generic. But that added layer of being wronged and almost killed and having to survive, and he's kind of taking control of these androids. And yeah, I liked all that complexity on top of his character. So that made me like him in spite of being a horrible being,
Yeah. It doesn't excuse him, but it at least helps us understand it. Yeah.
Agreed. So I'm going to take it one step further. We were saying Dune. I will agree with that. We were saying Phantom of the Opera. I will agree with that. And even though it is ahead of its time for the movies, it's not ahead of the time for the books. I would say that The Lord of the Rings, because he treated Perry like, it's my precious.
Mm-hmm. Oh, boy.
But that's a big part of Phantom of the Opera too, of course. But yeah,
true,
absolutely. But yeah, she was the thing worth having. Although comes a moment where he completely forgets about her when he's got his hands on Morgus, and that's the precious. wait till I twist this guy's head off, and then I'll get back to everything else. But there is a story that John Nathan Turner offered this role to Tim Curry and to Mick Jagger and to David Bowie.
Interesting.
And it's possible that 2/3 of that is apocryphal, but JNT would tell the story later on about how he was talking to David Bowie's people, and the only thing that got in the way of David Bowie playing that role was that they couldn't fit it into his schedule.
Now, see, I had heard the David Bowie part and the scheduling, so that's a little credence there, because I had heard that too.
Just amazing, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if wouldn't that have been interesting? He would have been great, but I think Christopher Gable is pretty fantastic here too. So, and Robert Glenister here is is Salatine and his android duplicate. And speaking of Nicole, I think Nicole pointed this out before. We'll see Robert Glenister again on Doctor Who 40 years later as Thomas Edison in Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror.
Interesting.
That's him.
Wow.
Isn't that awesome?
That is pretty freaking cool.
See, now I knew I had heard that name recently, and now I want to go back and watch it again and then go watch Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror again.
Right, yeah.
Oh, that is too funny.
Yeah, he looks completely different now, while, as we were talking last week, Nicola Bryant looks the same.
Yeah, yes, he does.
Let me ask you guys a question. Had we ever heard of the reason why the Doctor wears a vegetable before this story?
One of my notes here says, the question of the celery stalk is at last addressed, and not a moment too soon.
Yes.
Somebody help me out here. I did not catch this.
From the very beginning, as the Fifth Doctor, the first time he puts his ensemble together, he has a stalk of celery on his lapel where others might have a carnation or something. That's always been part of the costume, is the celery stalk. And nobody has ever, in the course of the Fifth Doctor's time, commented on it in any way. And finally, Harry says, so let me ask you. Yeah. Yes.
So
and then he actually gives it to her at the end, and it doesn't help.
it doesn't help. It doesn't change color.
It doesn't change color or anything. But
So I'm going to mess with your continuity, but I'm going to say that it is okay because just like you didn't remember this, the doctor himself doesn't remember this, but someone actually did call him out about the celery.
well, the 10th Doctor did.
Very good. You redeemed yourself. There you go.
Good. Yes. Look at me. I'm wearing a vegetable. Yeah.
I want to talk for a minute about the last episode. And the reason I want to talk about the last episode, I found it profound that we spend, for the most part, an entire episode with the doctor returning and trying for no other purpose but to find Perry, find his companion, and save the companion. And I just found that was very beautiful, as in storytelling goes, that, you know, he could have easily have gone back to the TARDIS and left her and you know, had no qualms and be fine, etc. But he put himself in great peril for the entire episode to rescue her. What did you guys think of that? And Clarence, why don't you go first?
I mean, it definitely felt very heroic and shows just how much he loves this companion. And honestly, I can see any doctor doing the same thing, but it definitely was about his struggle to get that cure for her. And I loved all that. It's funny you should mention the TARDIS, though, because as he crashed or as they landed back on the planet, I figured he would go straight to his TARDIS, but that kind of would have broke the story if you think about it, because he could have avoided a lot of stuff by going to his TARDIS and then using that to go into the cave and get the bat milk. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was kind of surprised he didn't go, but still I love how it played out. And yeah, ultimately just this whole episode is his struggle to get to this point to save his companion. And then he carries her back. So, I mean, all of that was great. All of that was great.
All right, Lee, what say you?
When I think of Caves of Androzani, what you just said is that's what I think of. I think of the Doctor burrowing his way down into Androzani Minor to get to milk a bat, and then crawling all the way back out, and then going over ground as the planet is blowing up, I may say, carrying the unconscious Perry, and then the part that always brings a tear to my eye, and if you blink, you'll miss it. But he stumbles at the door. He kind of parks her at the door and, has to get his key. And he's got 2 vials of the milk and he drops one of them in the sand.
I did not get that either.
Oh, my God.
He's got enough for both of them until that moment.
Oh, now you're making me sad, dude.
And he brings them in, and now he's only got one, and he gives it to her.
Wow.
Oh, that's even better.
Isn't it? Because, I mean, how disappointed would we be if he didn't? But the question that I've been asking, listeners of the show, tell us what it is about the Doctor that's important to you. And this is one of the things I think of. That's who the Doctor is. And because we keep making jokes about how this episode is eerily touches on what's really going on in the world as we record this, I got to say, a lot of my friends are making masks, because a lot of people need them and hospitals are terribly understocked with them. And the CDC has to keep explaining to people, you're not going out on the street wearing a mask so you don't get it. The fact is, you may have it and not know it. And if so, you could give it to somebody else.
Right.
You're not doing this for you. You're doing this for them, for everybody else. And so, if people are hip to that, now when I see somebody wearing a mask, it just makes me want to give them thumbs up and say, good for you.
Because it's completely the reverse of the perception there.
That's right. It looks like people wear, and I guess, maybe most people still think that. But as far as we know, the novel coronavirus isn't airborne. It can only be sent through the air if somebody sneezes or coughs in your direction. But if you're wearing a mask, it will catch your sneeze. So it's you protecting everybody else. That's what the mask is for. So anyway, but it's the same spirit. And here is the Doctor, and he has the bat milk, and so he gives it to Perry. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I always love that Peter Davison has the sense of humor to joke about this, because the way they play this final scene, of course, is that Nicola Bryant picks him up and cradles him. So for a minute, they look like the Pietà, they look like Mary and Jesus. But Davison is aware of Nicola Bryant's beautiful cleavage. So he always says, and there I am acting my heart out. And is anyone looking at me? No. But, hey, I'm dying down here.
Let's transition to that particular point because we're about to see a regeneration here at this point. So Clarence, having seen these other regenerations where it's all about the spectacle and the explosions and the tearing up the TARDISes and et cetera and so forth, what did you think of this particular regeneration?
Man, I'm still trying to recover from him dropping a vial that I didn't notice. Gee.
It's not. It is a failure of the way that scene is shot, because you really have to look closely to see it, and it's too bad because it's really important.
It is.
I mean, obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I will tell you, that is so profound that as many times as I've seen this episode, and I'll admit it is not as many as, New Who episodes that I've obsessed over. But that said, this is one of the first things that I ever bought back whenever I had my first iPod was, I think this and the Sunmakers and the Two Doctors were the first three things that I was able to purchase on my, old school iPod. That said, I've never noticed that. And all these years, I've never, ever noticed that.
Well, I could also be wrong, let us not forget. So, an excuse to go back and watch the end of that episode again.
But you know what? I like it better that way.
Yeah,
even if you are wrong, I'm choosing to
right,
see that.
It's stronger that way, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but on the actual regeneration, I found it very interesting. Now, for me, it's not going to be as impactful because I think the only character I noticed out of all of those was the Master, and I think I heard him say Adric was actually said in the little mono thing there.
That's his last word.
Yeah, so I didn't know any of those people, so it really didn't impact me much at all. But I'm sure it did for you guys, so maybe you can explain a little bit.
Okay, Lee.
It is interesting to see it now, sort of in hindsight, when we're expecting fire and explosions. But I guess because I'm old school, I've always thought that there's too much flash, bang, pow now about the regenerations. They've gotten bigger every time. So after a while, you start wondering what in the world, where's the end point of this going to be? Maybe that's why the TARDIS shook the 13th Doctor out. It's like, you know what?
Enough of this already.
Enough of this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let you burn me up. I don't know. So I guess I do. It makes more sense, sort of science fictionally, that there would have to be this, this extraordinary release of energy for somebody's whole physiology to be changed that way. But then, we've also seen it happen very quietly with the Master turning everybody into himself and things like that. So I really liked the 9th Doctor's regeneration, going from 9 to 10. And so I kind of wish they were all like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It still has the pyrokinetic, but it's not so much that it's just overblown.
Right.
Yeah. I will say, let me say this about the regeneration. This is one of the ones that I like, that they brought back these other companions to shoot the little sequences that they did that were companions. That's something mirrored in what we see today. And while this was not in the actual 12th Doctor, spoiler, regeneration, when he actually regenerated, this was in the, what I'll call the pre-regeneration, right before the Christmas special, where he stops the regeneration. But when he wakes up, he sees all these faces and then sees Missy, which is mirroring seeing all these faces and then seeing the Master. So I like how they connected those two sequences between the 5th Doctor and the 12th Doctor. I thought that was cool.
Right. Yeah, I remember noting that at the time. I thought, ooh, this is like Caves of Androzani. Yeah, kind of cool. Yeah. And of course, there's a chorus of his friends saying, you have to live, you have to live. And then the Master on top of them going, no, die.
Yeah.
So what was your first impression of seeing all of a sudden he sets up and does the change, my dear, and it is not a moment too soon. What did you think of that?
I thought it was cool. I mean, not a lot to go on other than seeing a new actor, but I thought he was very energetic from the jump. And I always like energetic, so yeah.
This is actually an impediment to me to the Sixth Doctor. I just remember the first time I saw Caves of Androzani, I was sitting there weeping, and then this guy sits up and he's rude to Perry, and I just wanted to punch him in the face. And then we got to the next week where it gets worse, and I said, you know what? I'm done with this guy. And so I didn't give him a chance way back when. I just hated him from the get-go.
I don't know why, but I always liked that vision of him sitting up and doing that, because I thought it was such a drastic change from the one you had before.
That's right.
The other one was so mellow, and then he is so like, it goes from, as Perry said, you were so not what was sweet. The other one was so sweet, and then this one was not sweet at all.
No.
So before we give our final rating, I'm curious if either of you had any other story points that you wanted to cover, or notes that you wrote down that you want to cover before we do the final rating. Lee, why don't you take it first?
I have a favorite scene and a favorite line.
Oh,
maybe
sweet.
2 favorite lines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Watching it again, and I'm pretty sure I would not have said this before, but the thing that just gave me the biggest laugh this time, or the biggest sensation, was Morgus pushing the president to his death and then calmly telling Timon that the president's committed suicide. The sheer gall of that. And then, you're waiting for karma to rebound on him, and then he calls Timon again for help, and she says, "No, I've told everybody what you did. Now I'm in charge." So
yeah.
Yes.
She took that a little too calmly after the president gets thrown down his lift and call somebody to fix the lift. Didn't have him killed. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's it. You got to be suspecting at that part that wheels are already turning in her head. She's got to be. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll do that.
Clarence, what about you?
Oh man, where do I start? I'll say that I liked how, I guess they were using the androids as kind of slave labor to mine this. What's the name of it again?
Spectrox.
Spectrox, yeah, Spectrox that they were using to just live longer. So I feel like there was an element of a rich society or a different class of society that are using, I guess, androids. So I guess it doesn't matter as much as it being another section of the race of the humans.
Oh,
but they're
how can you, as a fan of Picard, say that?
Well, we can say that now. Which reminds me, there's this great episode of Voyager where the EMH tries to free his fellow holograms who are actually mining dilithium.
That's right.
Photons be free. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, I mean, I love that complexity there. And then you have Morgus being this, he's sort of Palpatine-ish, where he's kind of pulling levers, but ultimately he's just as bad as our what we thought our main baddie was in I'm forgetting names. What's his name?
Oh, sure. As Jack. Yeah, sure as Jack.
Yeah, Jack. Wow, excuse me, I'm just brain freeze today. And so that's one part. Another one thing I want to note to how different people lost their crap when they saw Jex's face. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Because you had the one, he may have been a captain, a sergeant, I don't know what his rank was, but he was fighting him and he was probably pretty much getting the upper hand on Jex, but he sees his face and he just like loses his crap and like gets locked out in the mud slide or whatever it's called. Yeah. So I thought that was funny as well. Other than that, I think that's the high points. Of what another thing, Perry's accent in this episode, her American accent, I felt like it was worse. So it seemed like it just had gotten better by the time we watched the Mark of the Ronnie. It felt very Valley Girlish in this episode, at least in the beginning part of it. So
Yeah, that struck me too. That she's still working on the accent here, and yeah, one admires the effort. I didn't know until reading this on IMDb, and it wouldn't be on IMDb if it wasn't true. But but she apparently Nicola Bryant had full blown pneumonia while she was filming this.
Wow.
So it's amazing she's standing up and walking and talking.
But it makes sense that she didn't have a lot of action going on in the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true.
Oh, and I just got to point out too how Jex just fawns over Perry is the greatest. He said some lines in there I wish I could remember. They were really good.
He's a real poet. Yeah, that's I think that's the Phantom of the Opera touch. I mean, he's not only living underground with his face hidden and he's craving for a life of beauty. I mean, there's all of that. But yeah, all the beautiful things that he says to her.
Yeah. Indeed, he gets mad. Morgus, why ever trusted you, you Fessinine bag of slime?
Yes, Fessinine bag of slime. Yes, save that for your. Nobody really talks like that. But you do have to really appreciate the way the camera loves Nicola Bryant here too. Is that sometimes when he's holding her up and saying, how I've lived, to see beauty like this again. Yeah, one of the things. To my mind, to appreciate here, and it's just a compliment to Nicola Bryant, I think. But the camera crew here is to be commended as well. But these times where the camera focuses on her, and Jack is talking about how he's dreamed of having this kind of beauty in his life again, and we get a shot of her, and you got to say, just as a sort of her face as a work of art, I think you really have to say, yeah. Yeah, I understand what you're saying here. Yeah. So, and that maybe that wouldn't work so well with everybody, but
also, which might be apt in the midst of his isolation.
Oh yeah.
He's the only human down there with those androids.
Well, that's it. He's not going to settle for everybody. It's like, hey, a woman. I mean, what he gets really is this angel.
Yeah.
So, and you said about the camera crew and the angling and how everything looked. I don't usually pay attention to things like that. I'll be honest and say I don't usually pay attention to that. But they did an amazing job in the scene leading up, or the few movements leading up right before she sees his face. It was very well shot, in my opinion. It really kind of captured my attention, where it's building up for her seeing him, and then he immediately runs and gets under the table and starts, basically bawling like a child.
Yeah. There's a lot of scenes like that I noticed, and I always think about how big the floor cameras are that they use in shooting a show like this. It's really hard to move them in a hurry. And it's like a dance, choreographing the cameras in addition to everything else. So yeah, like in the sequence you're describing, they've got to get in super close on her and over his shoulder, and then pull way back in a hurry, so that we can follow him and keep her in focus in the background as well. Those people don't get enough credit, in my opinion. It's really hard to do. Great stuff.
Well, speaking of great stuff, something that was very reminiscent to me was I completely loved the maps. Every time they showed the map, this is actually a video game that I was good at.
Yes.
I loved Dig Dug, and I saw Dig Dug every time I saw those maps.
I'm afraid the maps do look like Dig Dug. They would not be practical in any way as maps of an underground mine. I grew up around underground mines, and I've seen many maps of them, and they don't look like that.
Well, I grew up around Dig Dug. And I did recognize that, and it made me want to go play Dig Dug again on my Atari 2600.
That's right. Now you know what you're getting down there is Spectrox.
Now I know that I really like those kind of games better than what they make today. So
yeah, there you go. So favorite line of dialogue in this show?
I actually don't have one. Do either of you?
I remember loving this when it happened. I mean, seriously, there's 4 episodes in this series, and aren't they 4 great cliffhangers? I mean, the Doctor and Perry are assassinated at the end of one of them. And then we've got They are assassinated, and then we get to the bat monster, and that's a guy in a suit. We'll let that pass. And the fourth one, obviously, the end of the fourth one, but the third one ends with the Doctor crashing his spaceship, and I just love the note this ends on, because the guy is standing there with Stotts, is there, pointing his gun at the Doctor. The Doctor's saying, "Well, I may be dead soon anyway, so I don't know if that's much of a threat." But he calls him Stottsy. And he says, "Stottsy, we'll all be crashing down in a couple of minutes. No, we'll all be touching down in a couple of minutes, or more likely crashing down." You see, I'm a bit out of practice with manual landings, so if I were you, I'd find something firm to hang on to. As we see the planet rocketing towards us.
Yeah.
And we go to the closing title. I'd find something firm to hang on to. But really, watching it again this time, something I noticed that I'd never noticed before, is Jack's last words. This may be my favorite line in the episode. Did you catch it?
Share.
As he's dying, he reaches out to the robot of Salatine, and he says, "Salatine, hold me."
Yes, he does. He does. Yeah. That was very interesting.
So, yeah. I'm looking at a transcript here, by the way, which is not a script, but, it usually does describe action. And it says that what happens at the TARDIS door is that he puts Perry down to get the key out of his pocket and nearly drops the vial of bat milk, spilling some of it. I still want to watch it again. But anyway, still, there's only enough for one.
But still. And every time you say bat milk, I see the bat symbol, just FYI. I'm seeing this vial with bat, like shaped in a bat with yellow and all that good stuff.
Oh, in 1966 Batman, Robin would have been sat down every day to drink his bat milk. With his bat breakfast and his,
All right. So, Clarence, any quote from you?
It's going to be Jex again. He makes the statement, "I lived so long with these caves, alone like an animal. Now I can feast my eyes on your delicacy and forget the pain and blackness in my mind." Wow. That's just him fawning over Perry once again, but great line.
Yeah.
So my favorite quote would have to be, believe it or not, "Change, my dear.
Change, my dear.
And it seems not a moment too soon." Yep. And, I want to mention real quick about that. This is the first Doctor story where the Doctor actually gets to speak at the end.
That's right.
We see that in the new ones, but yeah.
Yeah, there are a number of firsts here. And Colin Baker gets credited as the Doctor right after that. And then Peter Davison's credit comes after his in the closing title.
Interesting.
So as of that moment, he is the star of the show. I mean, and Colin Baker as the Doctor. Also, Peter Davison as.
Yeah.
So,
So, gentlemen, I think it is time to give our final ratings. So, Clarence, final rating, 1 to 5. What say ye?
I'm going to give this episode 4 mud bust out of 5.
All righty. Mr. Shackleford, what say ye?
I just can't find enough faults in it to not give it 5 vials of Spectrox Toxemia Anti-Desiccant.
Say that 5 times fast.
Exactly. That's why you say bat milk.
So because I bought this so many years ago, I'm going to give this 5 change my dears and not a moment too soons. Because I just thought it was cool. I mean, even before my obsession began in full force, I thought this episode was cool. So I'm going to give it 5.
It's cool.
Yeah. I love how ambitious the episode felt. I mean, I really felt that from the jump, that they really went for it with this one.
That's a good word for it. I mean, we didn't usually see things like a cross section of an underground cave with the tiny figure of the Doctor crawling down a tunnel. That's a kind of effect that really is really difficult to set up with the kind of resources they had. But they committed to do it, and they did it.
And I appreciated that too, because it showed how difficult it was for the Doctor to, complete that journey to get the bad milk. So I appreciated that.
Yeah.
I wonder if the reason that both of you are appreciating this, I believe that whoever directed this episode, I'm thinking that it was done differently than it had been done in the past. This person directed more of a hands-on approach, so much so that Davison went so far, I believe, to say that had more stories been directed like that, that he may have stayed on longer.
Wow.
That's right. Yeah, he really loved working with Graham Harper. That is, I've read that as well. That he really thought he should have directed all of Doctor Who. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But it's interesting that Clarence, that you said what you did, because the directing has a lot to do with how the final product comes out.
Yeah. And Androzani does come from Android and something else, right?
Yeah, I keep trying to parse that out. I mean, one of the things I enjoy about Robert Holmes' writing is that he loves language and he loves to play things like that. So, yeah, it's gonna be suggestive of Android something. Yeah.
Maybe that there are two different planets and they're like two different zones.
Maybe so.
Who knows?
Yeah,
That's pushing.
He's very interested in languages of the East, though. So I bet that the Zani suffix means something in Hindi, for example, or I don't know. I mean, I guess it's him who names this character Perpigilium for no reason than because it's cool, and that we'll call her Perry for short, which is one of the ancient words for fairy. So she's a fairy
named Perry.
Perry, and
and
that'll turn up in the next episode. Yeah, and Rani, of course, is Hindi for queen.
So maybe this was a little bit of wibbly wobbly, timey wimey going into a segue. Maybe they knew that some podcasters in the future were going to review the Caves of Androzani, because in the next episode, for anyone listening, we're going to be reviewing Time in the Rani.
From Androzani to Time in the Rani. I do like that. I do.
And that says, because Kyle's probably losing it at this point, that means I need to say, Lee Shackleford, where else might you be found on the internet?
Well, now wait. The advice we have from the doctor is make jokes, especially bad ones.
Oh, then I'm good at that.
She says she's good at it too. So yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I've got so many things going on right now. I really want to push people towards Listen, Rinse, Repeat podcast.com, or look for that on your podcatcher as Listen, Rinse, Repeat. And of course, the Relativity podcast, which is kind of on hiatus right now, but I do hope we'll be blazing back into your eardrums at some point in the near future. And let me make a quick shout out, since you made the mistake of asking me what else I'm doing, and point you towards a podcast called Corrections: Survival of the Fittest. You can read all about it at correctionssurvival.com. This is an amazing audio drama serial that is a project that I worked on with inmates at Donaldson Correctional Facility in Alabama. So this is a show that I worked with these guys to create, written by the inmates in this prison and ultimately performed by the inmates in this prison. And the story they tell is about the health issues that they face as incarcerated people. And we started this project years ago, but just this week, of course, they're in the news again, because that correctional facility is one of the most overcrowded in the country. And their message to the world right now is help. If we get COVID-19 in here, we're dead.
Wow, that's sad.
Yeah, that's where we are. So correctionssurvival.com, or look for the podcast, Corrections: Survival of the Fittest. Anyway, so that's what's up with me. What's up with you, Mr. Brown?
Not much at all, other than the fairy named Perry that I want to marry. I've just been chilling and trying to stay busy while I'm at home. I'm bored to death.
Hang on, I'm writing that down.
Yeah. Oh no, but I would just tell people, if you're bored and you need something to listen to that will keep you engaged and that's fun and intriguing all the same, I'll just piggyback on Lee and say, check out the Relativity podcast. It's good fun, and you'll hear some familiar voices in it as well. So definitely check that out.
Not discussing Trek?
Well, that too. The season is over.
Sure.
People have moved on for now.
Well, well, when you said that it'll keep you engaged, I said, "Oh, that's good."
Make it so.
So, I would say I would direct people to discussing comics, but since comic books really, 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 really are on a hiatus right now, believe it or not, I can't believe that, but yes, they are. Since they are on a hiatus, and since we said, listen, rinse, repeat, and I'm going to steal the name that Lee gave her a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to say our friend and hero Shannon Perry, who was the brainchild or one of the brainchilds behind that. She also does this podcast you may have heard me talk about before. It's called Oz 9. So go check out Oz 9. It's fantastic. Just FYI.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it. Yeah. I'm sorry. You'll have to be assassined. Anyway. But not before you come back for Time in the Ronnie.
Yes.
And our 200th episode, which is about, at this recording, about 8 episodes, something about away. And then our 400th episode and all that. But you're still going to be assassin. But anyway. So with that, everyone.
Jumping catfish. I did not. We're coming down on 200.
We are coming down on 200, believe it or not.
Wow. Okay. Well, you were trying to sign off, and I was.
No, I just think that's cool.
It is. It's amazing.
And can I interject real quick on one thing that I forgot to mention?
Sure.
As another parting gift. Check out our friend Dave AC's new podcast, which he's 16 episodes in. He's doing it daily, but it's called Never Isolated, where he's talking about the findings of the coronavirus, mainly focusing on the UK, but he talks a little bit about everything, and he does that daily. And I've been listening to that and enjoying it. So, shut up, Google. I've been listening to that and I've been enjoying it, and I definitely check it out. It is called Never Isolated, and it's on all of the podcatchers, I believe. So yeah, check that out.
Awesome.
Awesome.
And doesn't that just, once again, Dave's been a guest on this show, and of course we were on Podshot with him. That just again says Dave is an awesome, awesome human being.
Indeed.
Yes. And you know what? I think that's the best way to end this episode. Dave Cooper is an awesome, awesome human being, and we will be back next time.
Can't think of a better way to end it.
You've been listening to the Discussing Network. Find out more at discussingnetwork.com.